Welcome to our next journey. Today we're traveling to the 8th smallest country in the world. The weather will be good as we head back to the Caribbean. Come along as I take a closer look at football in St. Kitts and Nevis. We're leaving Uganda, our last travel stop, and returning to where we have already experienced quite a bit, the Caribbean. But the trip has to be well planned, because our destination is not exactly a big country. A few key data: 261 square kilometers, less than 50,000 inhabitants and independent since 1983. 2 islands, St. Kitts and Nevis. So, off to the airport. From Entebbe International Airport, first to Europe. More precisely, 2 short stops in Amsterdam and Paris. From France, off to the Caribbean. One last stopover on Sint Maarten, then off to Robert L. Bradshaw International Airport on St. Kitts. We landed in Basseterre, the capital of the island state, home to about 40,000 inhabitants. But is this also where we find the headquarters of the Football Association? Sure, we find it on Lozec Road. And as always, we first dive into the history. The country's history is marked by slavery and colonialism. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis are therefore justifiably proud of their resilience and strength. Sugarcane plantations shaped the country for many centuries, and it is precisely there that the history of football begins. To distract themselves from the terrible conditions and the great injustice, the slaves began to play football. They had seen it with the British immigrants who had brought the sport to the island. There were no real balls, so they had to play with inflated bladders from killed animals. It took until 1932 before S.D. Malone, the headmaster of a local school, founded the first football association on the island. At that time, the island connection was bigger, and teams from Antigua, St. Kitts, Montserrat and Dominica participated in the first football tournament in 1949. Antigua won the tournament, but this aroused the ambition of the St. Kitts Kickers. From 1950 to 1960, they won the tournament every year. In 1978, the Caribbean Football Union was formed, and St. Kitts became a member a year later. It took a while before membership of CONCACAF and FIFA could be announced. In 1992, the time had come. But before we look at the national team, what about a football league on the island? There is one, of course. The first documented title went to Rovers FC in 1952, followed by years of dominance by Newton United FC from the capital. There are currently 12 teams in the league, with the most recent title going twice to St. Paul's United from the capital. How good is the league? Let's ask our expert, national keeper Jamal Jeffers. Jamal Jeffers, formerly known as Jamal Francis, is 29 years old and has made 15 international appearances so far. He made his debut in 2015 against Turks and Caicos. He knows the league better than anyone and is part of the title-winning St. Paul's United team for his whole life.
Well, the level is not where we want it to be, but we're still in the work in progress. We play in an amateur league. We have somewhat 30 plus teams that makes up the association, the football association here in the island. Like I said, football is a big thing, so we have a lot of people who want to play football. The pitches they're pretty okay, and the level, like I said before, it's not where we want it to be. But I'm sure with a few more years, once we make our sport more well known, we could get investors, we could get people to come in and help out. That's something that I'm looking forward for. Maybe not recently as a player, but maybe someday as a coach.
Often, we have seen in the other videos that teams from the islands do not participate very often in international club competitions. How is it with St. Kitts and Nevis? Well, in 2022 there was no team in the Caribbean Club Shield, but in the last edition before Corona, in 2019, the Village Superstars were there.
Rams Village Superstars from St. Kitts and Nevis.
And in Group C, they were able to beat Hoppers FC from Antigua and Platinum FC from St. Lucia. They were then narrowly defeated by Robin Hood from Suriname in the quarterfinals. But with a few exceptions, the trend continues in St. Kitts and Nevis, with teams rarely taking part in international comparisons over the past 25 years. Impressions of the 2019 tournament, however, showed that the teams can certainly compete with bigger neighbors like St. Lucia or Grenada. Can the national team do the same? We also spoke about that with Jamal.
But the level is very good because we have a lot of talent here in St. Kitts and Nevis. But what I feel like we're lacking is the proper level of coaching, the facilities, and the fundamental part of the game. But then we have English-based players, US-based players who come along and join us together to make a whole competitive team. And we are okay enough, but Haiti and those other countries, like Jamaica, they're up there because they've made a name for themselves. You know, we got to come together and try to be that reckoning, get more better players, so we could integrate better and we could make a name for ourselves. You know what I mean? But the gap isn't so far because Haiti, Jamaica, they have mostly professional players to come and help them, like professional. We more have semi-pros, one or two professional players to come and join up with us. But every time we play those Caribbean countries, they always edge us by a goal or two. It's not a big margin where these teams are way better than us, where we would play them and we would kind of see it 4, 5, 6 goals. So the margin is very close. But like I said, if we get that level of coaching, that fundamental aspect of the game, I think in a year or two, you never know, maybe St. Kitts and Nevis might be able to compete with these guys.
As mentioned at the beginning of the video, the history of the national team goes back a long way. But it really starts with the CONCACAF and FIFA accession in 1992. The so-called Sugar Boys managed to qualify directly for the Caribbean Cup in 1993. At the tournament in Jamaica, they even managed to come second in the group with Jamaica, Puerto Rico and Sint Maarten. In the semi-finals, they lost to Martinique only on penalties. The team's greatest success then came in 1997, when they co-hosted the Caribbean Cup with Antigua and Barbuda, and football has shown time and again the power these tournaments can unleash in their own country. In Group B, they first reached second place behind Trinidad and Tobago, but ahead of Martinique. Grenada then awaited in the semi-finals, and 2 goals from the legendary Keith Gums ensured entry into the final. There, Trinidad was again waiting, and once again St. Kitts and Nevis had to admit defeat. Who knows how the game would have turned out if the final had been played in Basseterre and not Antigua. The team still made it into the history books of football on the island. But how are things going now? Qualifying for a World Cup or the Gold Cup is currently in a bit of a distance. But for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, they managed to pull off a surprise in the qualifiers. In the first round, they managed to leave Trinidad behind them in Group F. In the second round, El Salvador was too strong. They were relegated from League B to C in the CONCACAF Nations League and now want to return at the end of March. At the moment, the chances are good, with matches against Aruba and Saint-Martin. If the team is promoted, it can also take part in the qualifiers for this year's Gold Cup. So the chance is there to make history again. The national team plays its home games at Warner Park in Basseterre. How can we imagine the atmosphere there?
But the feeling is always good because, you know, everybody wants to play in their backyard. And, you know, when you put that shirt on, shirt and pants, just an honor to represent your country. You're an ambassador, so, you know, you have to wear that with pride, wear that with dignity, and wear that with passion. So when you talk about the atmosphere from the fans, always good. We have dropped off a lot in recent times, but I could remember one time we had home games where we had this thing that steel drum, you know, those big drums, and then we keep beating music throughout the whole game. But like I said, that was before right now it's not so good. It's not where we want it to be. I wish we could get back to those glory days. I'm hoping that for the upcoming games and times to come in the future that we could get back our cohesiveness, our loud noise, our wonderful support from our people in St. Kitts and Nevis.
I wish the team only the best for the tasks ahead. It won't be easy, but there is still a chance to make the historic qualification for the Gold Cup. Then, new legends could emerge on the small island. It would also be the crowning glory of the career of Gerard Williams, who carried the St. Kitts and Nevis flag all the way to India and made a name for himself there.
This is Siddharth Colasso with the crosspad, the towering presence of Gerard Williams.
A small country with many footballers with big hearts. St. Kitts and Nevis. It has been an honor, and in March we will see where the team's journey takes us. In any case, our journey continues. If you don't want to miss the next destination, subscribe to the channel now, and I'll see you back here very soon. Have a good one.